Let's talk about the dev update. Well, the devs have released their developer update for June 2020, and boy, is it huge, both in terms of length and also in terms of what it brings to the game as far as what they're changing. In this video, I'm going to break down all of the key points for you and give you my opinions on these massive changes coming to the game. Spoiler alert, I'm pretty excited. Let's get to it. All right, first up, they're overhauling the entire progression system. They're getting rid of teachable perks as they currently stand. You will no longer need to level a character to 40 to unlock their teachable perks, and then hope that these perks show up in the blood webs of your other characters. Instead, teachable perks are now tied to prestige. Prestige a character once and you'll unlock their tier 1 perks on all other survivors or killers. And to get their perks to tier 2 or 3, you can prestige that character again to prestige 2 or 3, or unlock it through the blood webs of your characters. This seeks to cut the blood point grind by 75% and creates a more sustainable model going forward as future chapters are released. And I absolutely love this change because the blood point and perk grind is insane for new players and way too dependent on RNG, if you ask me. So I'm pretty excited for this one. Prestiging a character will also no longer reset their perks and items, which is awesome. And prestiging is also endless, so the number of times that you have prestiged will show up on the scoreboard where your grade used to be as a way to honor your time investment into a particular character. The prestige cosmetics have now been moved to prestige 4, 5, and 6, unless you've already earned them, in which case they are yours to keep. You'll also get a unique perk charm for prestige 7, 8, and 9 to show off your favorite perks. And they're also rewarding players who have already prestige characters with prestige levels based on how many perk tiers you've unlocked. So as best as I can tell, they're really trying to make sure that any time investment that you've made before this system change is honored. The Shrine of Secrets will now unlock that tier 1 perk on all characters, and you can upgrade it to tier 2 and 3 depending on whether or not you purchase again or just unlocking it through the blood web. Overall, I'm pretty excited about these perk changes and how they'll reduce the grind pretty considerably and yet give us something to chase through the prestige system. All right, now on to matchmaking incentives. They're adding these matchmaking incentives that they've been talking about for a while now. Essentially, they're offering a blood point bonus for whatever role is in demand within a specific region and matchmaking bracket at any given time. These bonuses will range from 25 to 100% based on the gap between the supply and demand for each role. If there are too many killers, then you'll be offered a bonus to play survivor and vice versa, and that bonus will grow based on how great the need is. You will need to have crossplay enabled to receive these bonuses, and I think this is a great change to reduce queue times and get some extra BP in the process, especially if you enjoy playing both Survivor and Killer. Then you can go to wherever you are most needed and be compensated for it accordingly. All right, on to some gameplay updates. This is where we really get into the meat of this update. There are a ton of gameplay changes coming. I specifically love that they have clearly put a lot of thought and care into adjusting the base gameplay alongside of 39 specific perks and balancing all that together at once. Now, it's definitely a daring move and it comes with some risk because you're obviously upsetting the balance of the game quite a bit, and there will obviously need to be some rebalancing going forward, but hopefully this achieves a massive shift and expansion in the current meta all at once instead of a painful crawl over years and years of reactive updates to arrive at the same point. So I am cautiously hopeful for this. Let's start with the changes to generators. To reduce the felt need for killers to run generator slowdown perks every trial, because it always feels like generators are popping too quickly if you're a killer main, they are increasing the time for a generator to be repaired fully by 10 seconds, moving it to 90 seconds instead of 80. As a killer main, I welcome this change because there are so many times, especially in early game, where the generators are popping before you can even start really applying any pressure. So this will help slow down the game just slightly in the killer's favor. Another change to generators is that now kicking one removes 2.5% of the maximum progress, which makes it actually worthwhile for killers to pause and kick them without making it too OP. It also makes it more risky for survivors who like to tap generators in chase to stop their regression, because this will actually open up the opportunity for the killer to kick it again and cause further loss of progress. All right, onto the killer changes. They are straight up all out buffing killers to make them more worthy of being feared. The time it takes to break walls and pallets is reduced by 10%, kicking generators is now 10% faster, the cooldown for successful basic attacks is reduced by 10%, and the survivor speed bonus after being hit is reduced by 10%. Also, Bloodlust tiers 2 and 3 will now activate a tiny bit sooner. Now, if you don't know what Bloodlust is, it's basically a mechanic that increases the killer's movement speed slightly in longer chases to help the killer shorten the chase. So this will now happen a little bit faster, but also with the other changes they're making will probably be needed less. So I think these are good changes. I don't think they're too OP. We're talking about fractions of seconds here, not insane changes. Even though 10% sounds like a lot, it's not actually, it ends up being like fractions of seconds. So I'm not too worried about it being too OP, and of course, if it ends up being too OP, they'll probably roll it back, so, well. And there are also changes coming to survivors as well. So to combat tunneling and camping, all survivors are basically now getting, as base kit, a mini borrowed time. Survivors will get a 5-second endurance status effect after being unhooked, which means they will be able to tank a hit within that 5-second window. They will also get a 7% haste effect for those same 5 seconds, allowing them to get away faster. However, both of these effects will be canceled if the survivor performs what they're calling a conspicuous action, which they define as any of the following: repairing a generator, healing yourself or others, cleansing a totem or blessing a totem, sabotaging a hook, unhooking others, or opening an exit gate. So basically, they give you an extra 5 seconds to run to safety, and if you do anything other than that, you're not going to be protected, which I think is pretty fair. It's basically meant to help you escape a tunneling killer, not allow you to tunnel on a generator in front of the killer's face, right? So, there you go. All right, and now for the moment we've all been waiting for. What are they doing to our beloved perks? Well, they're nerfing a bunch of killer and survivor meta perks, but don't freak out too fast because they're actually making a lot more buffs to non-meta perks than they're making nerfs to meta perks, and I actually think a lot of the nerfs aren't that big of a deal. So for the killer meta perks, barbecue and chili, they're removing the blood point bonus, making this a true aura reading perk. Essentially, they don't want to motivate you to pick a specific perk in order to get a blood point bonus, so they're just removing that altogether. The aura reading effects are not being changed, so essentially the perk becomes what it's meant to be, is an aura information perk, right? With the changes to progression and the blood point grind, this becomes much less of a nerf than it sounds at first. All right, now on to what's probably the biggest nerf out of all of them. I know I said most of them didn't get hit that hard. Ruin got hit pretty hard though. Ruin has been heavily nerfed, having its regression speed cut in half down to 50, 75, and 100%. After Survivor is killed, it will be deactivated, and I'm not sure if it can be reactivated or not, or if it's just gone for the trial. It really does sound like once you get a Survivor out, it's done. So that's a pretty big nerf if you ask me. All right, Pop goes the Weasel. Now, kicking a generator with Pop will remove 20% of the generator's current progress instead of a flat 25% of total progress. It will still be very potent on generators that are near to the end, but less so on generators with little to no progress. Corrupt Intervention. I'll be honest, this one had me worried a little bit when I saw it in the nerf list, but I'm pretty happy with the result, I think. So now when you down a survivor, the perk will deactivate and the generators will no longer be blocked. So if you struggle with finding survivors at the start of the trial, then the perk is as strong as ever. Nothing's really changed by that point. But the purpose of the perk is really for you to be able to draw out survivors and apply early game pressure. So once you've gotten one down, it's essentially fulfilled that purpose. So essentially, this avoids those rare situations where this perk becomes OP when you find and down multiple survivors very quickly at the start of a trial, and then you've got 60 seconds left where 3 gens are still being blocked and you've got 2 survivors on hooks. Doesn't happen very often, but it won't happen anymore with this perk, basically. Tinkerer. Tinker can only be activated once per generator, but with additional 10 seconds on the generation completion time, killers will have more time to catch up and react when Tinkerer procs. Noed. Noed is still just as powerful as ever in terms of buffing the killer, but now when it activates, survivors will see the totem's aura when they're within 4 meters of it, and over the next 30 seconds, this range will increase to 24 meters. So killers still get all the benefits, but survivors will have a little more motivation, a little more advantage to stay in the game, to cleanse it, and to attempt a rescue. Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. This perk has served 2 purposes, both gen regression and information by alerting the killer to where the most progressed generator was, and also if any survivors were working on it by making them scream when it explodes. They've basically removed the information part where the gen will no longer give a noise notification and survivors won't scream, which means you can't pair it with Dead Man's Switch as effectively anymore. All right, on to survivor meta perks that they are nerfing. Dead Hard. You can no longer use Dead Hard to go for distance. Essentially before, you could use it to either dodge a hit or go for distance. Dead Hard now instead will grant 1 second of endurance, essentially requiring you to take a hit in order to get the speed boost. So it benefits the survivor if you time it right, but the killer if you time it wrong. Decisive Strike is another one that's probably getting pretty badly nerfed. No longer will it activate once the exit gates are powered, so you can't get a guaranteed escape anymore at the end of the trial. And the stun duration has also been nerfed from 5 down to 3 seconds, which is, pretty significant. So that one might not be as meta anymore. Borrowed Time is essentially getting a very small nerf with 2 seconds removed off of the endurance effect in total. However, keep in mind that base kit, you are getting a 5-second endurance effect that's been added. Essentially means that Borrowed Time has now been buffed with an additional 3 seconds of net endurance in total between the 2 changes. So Borrowed Time will remain very good, though it's probably going to be needed less because hopefully killers will be less motivated to tunnel because of the base kit changes. So you may not need to run it as often to reap the benefits. Iron Will, this will no longer eliminate your grunts of pain completely at tier 3. The grunts of pain reduction is now 25, 50, and 75%, and it will not activate at all if you are exhausted. Self-care has been nerfed down to 25, 30, or 35% of the normal healing speed, so you can still heal yourself, it's just going to be much slower now. All right, Spine Chill, the killer now has to have line of sight for this to activate, and it will have a short lingering effect to prevent it from flickering if the killer's like looking around all over the place. The vault speed bonus has also been removed completely. Now they are also buffering a large number of non-meta perks, 25 in total. So we have more buffs in this update than nerfs, which I absolutely love. This was my hope. So for killer, overcharge. When you kick the generator, the regression speed will grow from 100% to 400% over 30 seconds. Now this will motivate survivors to have to try to tap that gen, which will trigger a very hard skill check. Eruption, they've buffed the regression penalty to 10% up from 6%, and they've increased the duration of the incapacitated effect to 15, 20, and 25 seconds, up from 12, 14, and 16 seconds for tiers 1, 2, and 3. Knockout will now cause dying survivors to crawl 50% slower for 15 seconds and reduce their recovery speed by 25%. So it'll give you a little extra breathing room if you want to slug out a survivor for a short time. Coulrophobia. Why can't I not say that word? Coulrophobia. Skill checks will be 50% faster if you are in the killer's terror radius with coulrophobia. Dark Devotion. Dark Devotion used to force you to hit your obsession with a basic attack to transfer your terror radius to them. So if you hit them with a special attack, it didn't do it. Now they just need to lose a health state. It's better, but I probably still won't use it, to be honest. So Jolt no longer has a cooldown, which makes it much more useful. It used to be you had, I think at tier 3, you had like a 40-second cooldown or something like that. So you could only proc it every once in a while. No longer does it have a cooldown, so it'll just proc anytime you put a survivor into the dying state. Lethal Pursuer. I love this perk, and I love this change. On top of the existing effect, you now gain 2 extra seconds to all aura reading effects, which means that this perk is no longer useless 9 seconds into the trial, which got especially annoying when the game would spawn you facing a wall and you'd spend the first 2 of your 8 seconds turning around just to have anything be useful at all. It will stay great at helping you increase early game pressure, and it will be valuable to pair with other aura reading perks as well. Scourge Hook, Gift of Pain. Action speed penalties are increased to 10, 13, and 16%, up from 7, 8, and 9. So tier 1 will now actually be better than the old tier 3, which is pretty cool. Thanatophobia. Action speed penalties are being increased. Scourge Hook, Monstrous Shrine. This perk may now actually have a use. This is amazing. The basement hooks now become Scourge Hooks, which basically means I think you can pair it with Scourge Hook perks to increase the total number of Scourge Hooks on the map overall. We'll see. I don't know, maybe it moves all 4 Scourge Hooks down to the basement, but it seems to me that that might make it so you could have, is it up to 8 then, if I'm doing my math right? And by the sound of it, all Scourge Hooks will grant 10, 15, and 20% faster entity progression as long as the killer is at least 24 meters away. So if I'm right that it will actually increase the number of Scourge Hooks if you run another Scourge Hook perk, then that means you'll have 4 in the basement, and I think it's 4 out on the map, and if you use any of them now, it'll increase the entity progress as long as you're not, camping the hook. A potentially huge buff when stacking Scourge Hook perks. All right, on to Survivor non-meta perks that they're buffing. Calm Spirit, you get the normal effects plus the ability to open chests and cleanse and bless totems completely silently, but at a reduced speed. So it does cost you some speed on the actual action, but you can do it completely silently and not alert the killer. Saboteurs can now identify Scourge Hooks with yellow auras, allowing you to target Scourge Hooks specifically. Botany Knowledge, healing speed efficiency has been majorly buffed from 11, 22, and 33% to 30, 40, and 50%. So again, tier 1 is almost now as good as tier 3 in the old perk ecosystem. Off the record, once you were unhooked, you gain endurance for 60, 70, and 80 seconds. Performing any conspicuous activity will cancel this, but it basically guarantees an escape. Like if you can't escape in 80 seconds, play killer, I guess. All right, Lucky Break can now be recharged, which is pretty cool because it's kind of a selfish perk, but this now motivates you to be more team-oriented as well, which is neat. Pharmacy, this will now activate whenever you are injured, guaranteeing you an emergency med kit instead of just the first time you search a chest. And I love how they call out megs for stealing emergency kits. Soul Survivor, when you are the last survivor standing, your gen repair speed is increased by 75%, and the exit gate and hatch action speeds are decreased by 50%, so you become a lot more effective if you're the last one alive. All right, so distortion. You can now regain tokens, one for every 30 seconds you spend within the killer's terror radius. Lightweight scratch marks will become more sporadic and fade significantly faster, so that one becomes a lot more useful. Deja vu. You will now get a 5% repair speed bonus to generators revealed by the perk, allowing you not just to find them faster, but also to repair them faster. No one left behind means that they will grant you a 7% movement speed to any survivors you unhook, and now activates once the exit gates are powered rather than once they are open, so it activates a little bit sooner. Dark Sense. This has been fully reworked. It used to be that whenever a generator was completed, you could see the killer's aura for a limited time, so basically useless if the killer was on the other side of the map. Now, once a generator is repaired, the next time that the killer comes within 24 meters of you, you will see their aura before the perk deactivates. So it basically guarantees you some useful information for every time you repair a generator. Tenacity will now reduce your grunts of pain by 75% when in the dying state, in addition to the crawling speed bonus. And as a killer who always uses sound to track survivors in the dying state, this will make it a lot harder for me. So this is a good change. Hope. They've removed the time duration of the perk, which I take to mean that as soon as the exit gates are powered, you gain a permanent haste status effect instead of it only lasting 2 minutes. Because if you just ran around for 2 minutes trying to find the exit gates and then the killer caught up to you, it is basically a useless perk. So it becomes a little more useful in the end game. Overzealous, one of the newest perks, they've actually doubled the repair speed bonus you receive from cleansing a totem if that totem you cleansed was a hex totem. We're going to live forever. Okay, so technically this one's a nerf. They're basically just taking away the blood point bonus like they did with barbecue and chili, so they're leaving the actual perk itself, the point of the perk that is, untouched, but they're just taking away the blood point bonus. Now, when they announced that they were going to be changing a lot of these perks, I really hoped that they would focus more on buffs and go light on the nerfs. And for the most part, I think they did exactly that. Many of the nerfs are gentle, in my opinion, with a few exceptions like Hex Ruin, and there are a lot more buffs than nerfs this time around. So especially when you factor in the base kit changes, really, there's a lot more buffing than nerfing. So I'm really hopeful and excited for most of this. I feel like the game is going to get more fun rather than, hey, you nerfed all my toys and now the game's just boring, which tends to be what I feel like happens in other games. I am really excited about these changes. All right, so they say that all of this will be playable in next week's PTB, so that means the mid-chapter patch should be coming pretty soon, sometime probably in the next several weeks. So what do you think about these changes? Let me know down in the comments. What do you love? What do you not love? And what are you most worried about with these changes coming up? Now, if you enjoyed the video, would you let me know by hitting that like button and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content from me in the future and haven't already done so. And here are 2 more videos that I think you would like from my channel. And as always, you've been awesome, stay awesome, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.